Oh.
So now let's begin. My name is Peter Mandal, and I'm very happy to welcome you today to this seminar arranged by the Royal Academy of Engineers in Sweden. It's a great interest for the event from both Sweden, but also parts of Europe. And this event is produced and presented by the project, the Entrepreneurship Academy within the Royal Academy. And what we do is that we focus on entrepreneurship, and today more specifically around intrapreneurship. And when it comes to actually facilitate and share knowledge about that within the Swedish ecosystem. And our work within the Entrepreneurship Academy, you can find more information around at EVA's homepage. My role in the Academy is to focus on entrepreneurship and the work around that and how we can develop that. And one of the things we do focus on is, as I said, to share knowledge. And we have done a few different events last year, and we will keep on doing this year as well. Today we have a really packed morning with a lot of interesting speakers. And before I present the first speaker, I would like to give you some guidelines when it comes to technology. We would love you to use the Q&A function within Zoom. If you haven't used it, it's in the bottom of the screen, and you can write your questions to us there, and I will take the responsibility to take these questions to the different speakers during the event. The webinar will also be recorded and published at EVA later on. And most important is that during this webinar, we will work with translation. And if you haven't done that before, this is how you do it. On your Zoom tablet or screen, you have an option of interpretation in the lower right corner, where if you want to have the webinar in English, you choose English. If you have any problems, you could also write in the chat, and my colleague Gustav will help you out on how to do this. So, short to the agenda before we kick off. We will start very soon with Mr. Chang Rumin. After that, we will have two different case studies on the back of Rendanheyi model and how it can be applied in different parts of the world. After that, we will have a short introduction to how to scorecard your organization on the back of this model. And before we leave this seminar, we will have a discussion together with all you guys on how this could be used in the Swedish ecosystem and in Swedish businesses. So that is the agenda in short. But with that, I'm very happy to present Mr. Chang Rumin, the founder and chairman emeritus of the board of directors at Hire Group. He is one of the top 50 management figures in the world, and he is, of course, also the father of the Rendanheyi model and the founder of the IoT ecosystem brand. So with no more introductions, Mr. Chang, I'm very happy to have you here today, and I'm looking forward for your speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter Mandel, for your kind introduction. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to take part in today's webinar, because today we have the participation of very important experts and practitioners of innovative management models. And today my topic is Rendanheyi, the world-leading business model in the Internet of Things era. Why we call it the world-leading model? We can start the story from Simonson Nick. He proposed the important idea of three circles. It is called the golden circles. The inner circle is why, and the middle circle is how, and the outer circle is what. So we start from why, and everything starts from a why, a reason. And the enterprise must make its business strategy and direction. So any enterprise must get it very clear the why. Otherwise, the enterprise will get missing in his strategy. And the second question we need to answer is, once we know why, we need to know how to get there. So we must get clear Rendanheyi, its concept and its pillars. So we need to answer the question how to build a Rendanheyi model and how to compose Rendanheyi model with its key pillars. The third question we need to answer is the goal, or what. That means we need to make Rendanheyi model global and universal. So I will tackle the three questions one by one. The first question, the origin of Rendanheyi model, and I will focus most of my presentation in this slide. So Rendanheyi was proposed on 20th of September 2005. It has a history of 17 years. Why we proposed the Rendanheyi? Because 2004, Haier Group became the largest white good company in China. That year, our revenue in China was 100 billion RMB. We were number one in China. If we continued this path, we would face bottlenecks, because if you are very big, but the industry will have some limits. So we want to give full play to the potential of each employee. By doing so, we can create much more opportunities from the market. And that was the background when Rendanheyi was proposed. And you can see the three pillars of Rendanheyi. Ren stands for people or employees. Dan stands for users or the people or the consumers. And Heyi stands for alignment or becoming one. If an employee can create more value for his or her users, the employee can share more access profits, vice versa. But in traditional enterprises, employees don't know who are the users. Employees only know their boss, their superiors. Therefore, the first step that we took was to remove the bureaucracy inside enterprise. From 2005, we removed the 12,000 middle managers. We forced them to leave the company or become entrepreneurs. So where they ended up, they have two options. One option is entrepreneurship. Otherwise, they must leave the company. So a small fraction of the 12,000 middle managers left the company. They went to other enterprises, but most of the middle managers became the first entrepreneurs of Haier. After eliminating bureaucracy, there was the concept of subordination and superiority inside Haier. So all employees became autonomous entrepreneurs. But if you want to give autonomy to entrepreneurs or employees, you must give them the three basic powers: the power to fire and hire, the power to distribute profits, and the power to make business decisions. After having the three powers, the entrepreneurs must act as themselves, but their strength was limited. So they must compose some small unit. We call them micro enterprises. One micro enterprise is composed by several people or several autonomous entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs must find their leading goal, and they must work hard toward the leading goal. After creating value, they can share the excess profits. And if the micro enterprise thinks they can do better than the original leading goal, they can choose another leader to lead the micro enterprise toward another direction. And no leading goal is imposed by the Haier Group or executives of the company. And when micro enterprises want to do something bigger, they will form EMC. EMC stands for Ecosystem Micro Community. That means a community of several micro enterprises. Micro communities hold the users at their center. So you can see every leading goal or every work starts from an unmet need of the users. And I start with this idea from Nash equilibrium. Nash equilibrium means all the stakeholders or participants will reach an agreement or solution which is best for every participant. If you don't take part in Nash equilibrium, you cannot get the best result. For example, the non-nuclear proliferation agreement has such effects. However, Nash equilibrium has a problem. If all the members don't want to take part in Nash equilibrium, there will be a problem of collective deviation. For example, the monopoly in the market, and most of the key members of the market, for their own interest, they just break the Nash equilibrium. So we proposed a new idea of dynamic equilibrium. Every member, every participant of the micro community must evolve in order to continuously meet the unmet needs of users. So compared to Nash equilibrium, our system is dynamically equilibrium. And we just broke down the bureaucratic hierarchy of an organization, and we built from scratch a totally new dynamic organization. The first step is we made every employee autonomous entrepreneur. And the second step is the autonomous entrepreneurs form micro enterprises. The third step is the micro enterprises form micro communities, and micro communities, they naturally evolve with the times to meet the unmet needs from the users. And this is the key difference from Rendanheyi and the traditional models. I also believe this is a trend of the times. To 1,000 years ago, Lao Tzu wrote a book, Tao Te Ching. One of his famous statements is the motion of the way is to return. That means sometimes you want to go forward, but you end up with going backward. Hegel, Western thinker, also said, everything in the world contains itself some elements to oppose itself. For example, during the Industrial Revolution, everything was correct. However, when you advance with the times to the IoT era, the thing that was right in industrial age are not right. So no matter you use lean management theory or Taylor system, they won't work nowadays. And there are three distinctions between Rendanheyi and the traditional models. In the traditional model, there are three key elements: value, employee, and user. Every management model wants to maximize the long-term profits of enterprise, and every traditional model wants to know the key aspiration of users, and every traditional model wants to create highest loyalty of employees. However, in traditional models, you cannot get all the three aims. However, we can do this using Rendanheyi, because from all the three perspectives, we are very different from them.
First, let's look at the employee dimension. In a traditional organization, because there are three elements that are involved: the subject, the object of the management, and also the tools for management. The subjects are the autonomous individuals, and then the objects are the employees, and then we have the processes and rules. So when an employee comes in, it will have to take orders from all kinds of supervisors and managers. But under Rendanheyi, all the individuals become autonomous. They are the subjects of management. They can make their own decisions. So they have become autonomous individuals rather than the managees. So this is about the idea of quantum management. All the individuals in the system are autonomous and freestanding. I take my own decisions, because if I'm not autonomous, then I won't be able to create value for others. So these two ideas are mutually reinforcing. I would like to show you a video. This is an octopus. This is a jellyfish. As you can see, the jellyfish does not have the central nervous system, but all the tentacles are autonomous. When they see the prey, the brain does not send command. All the tentacles will surround the prey. Similarly, all the autonomous individuals are independent, and when they need to achieve a target, they don't have to take commands. They can act autonomously. And this is what Kant said. Men are the end, not the means. And the end is that we need dignity for everyone. And how do we achieve that? You'll have to maximize self-value as individuals. So that goes to the employee dimension. And then the value dimension is about making sure everyone is an autonomous person, and then we create the conditions and the foundation for them to achieve self-value. In a traditional organization, we think about shareholder value primacy and maximization, and individual value comes secondary, and it's actually determined by the evaluation of the CEOs and managers. All the positions are set and all the jobs are appointed to the individuals. But in Rendanheyi, employee creates their own value and maximizes their own value. And they create the value without taking commands from the top. Aristotle said, man's happiness is about the free exercise of his ultimate rational capacities. This is a very important message. We can't say that man's happiness is about getting more, earning more. That's the material dimension which matters as well. But ultimately, it's about whether you are able to exercise your ultimate potential, your rational capacity. If it's just about earning more and it's about the material gain, then you'll be in a dilemma. It's like the pendulum, according to the German philosopher. Turning to the left, this is driven by desire, and with the desire for gain, there is pain. And then the pendulum goes to the other extreme, which is the boredom after your material gain and objective is served. So it's either pain or boredom. And you will not be able to have the real sense of happiness. In Rendanheyi, at the heart of human value maximization, it's about making sure you have enduring happiness, and that's achieved through self-value realization. And I think that in turn will contribute to value for shareholders, because shareholders cannot create value, they share in the value. When employees create maximum value, that value is actually contributing to the end of shareholder value maximization. And with employee value maximization, how do we make sure it's embodied in the compensation and user relationship? So you have to have zero distance to users. You have to create value for users constantly. Without that, you won't be able to deliver on your promise. This is the value chain model proposed by Michael Porter in 1985 in his book Competitive Advantage, and we've been learning about that. We can see the arrow points towards the channel or the sales network. After the product is out of the factory, it's the end of the transaction. And within the organization, we have the supportive activities and the primary activities. And we can see those correspond to different departments and divisions, but they don't have direct engagement with users. For example, the R&D works on product and it's a push model. But now we are creating an interactive ecosystem of user experience. In the 21st century, competitiveness is not a function of how many products you have, but rather how much lifetime user value you're creating and how many lifetime users you have. And it can't be done by a single organization. It has to become an ecosystem that's ever expanding, that's interacting with users all along, because we know this is personalized value and needs, and it changes every day. That's why the founder of business ecosystem theory, James Moore, said co-evolution is a process in which independent species evolve in an endless reciprocal cycle. His message has two key words. Co-evolution is for one. The other is the term endless reciprocal cycle. In a traditional organization, there's no co-evolution. This is a zero-sum game. With the organization at the center, I want my organization to outperform. I don't need to co-evolve with others. We're not talking about the IoT era. Second, there's no endless reciprocal cycle. It's a one-off transactional relationship. When I sell a product, the relationship ends. And then I think about the next transaction. User demand is generated, and we will have to iterate and evolve to meet the ever-changing user need. That's the Rendanheyi model. That's why we look at the three dimensions: the users, the employees, and the value. I think we are very different than traditional models. So I was talking about Rendanheyi as a leading business model and management model. Let me now turn to the next segment as to how we create this all-round system and framework of leadership. First, leading with the Rendanheyi model. As we heard from Bureaucracy, a Nobel Prize winner, he said in 1969, the definition is about the nonlinear equilibrium that's away from the state of equilibrium. We can see that this is a model of mass production. So all the metrics will have to be balanced in that system. And second, it's linear from R&D to manufacturing to procurement. Third, it's closed. It's revolving around the organization. But now we are talking about mass customization. So it will have to be far from equilibrium because we don't know what users really need. And I can't say for sure this is the number of products I manufactured this month. And we have to manufacture actually on demand. Also, it's not linear. It's non-linear because the user needs are changing and going all over the place. Third, it's open. It's not revolving around the organization itself. It's connected to other players and stakeholders. That's why at the heart of this, we have the EMC contract. And there are two types of dynamic balance here. This is the yin and yang in the book of change. Those two elements are always in dynamic balance. The red one is the experience EMCs. They are responsible for engaging with users to deliver the experience. And then the solution EMCs, after getting the experience information, will work on the solution that's needed by the users. In previous times, we were learning from Japanese manufacturers, and they develop products every 2 to 3 years. Now, the cycle is much shorter. The solution EMCs will have to manufacture and invent the solutions right away. But it's not about doing it indiscriminately. It's about extracting the real demand and then consolidating some of them and create addressable markets. And this has to be achieved through user engagement without distance. Before, between the organization and users, there was friction, but zero distance to users ensures there's no friction. So that's about the EMC contract. And the Rendanheyi scorecard, you can see on the x-axis and the y-axis, we have the co-evolution on the y-axis. This is a moving organization in a changing marketplace. So we have the market as the invisible hand, and then we also have the theory of a visible hand, but those pertain to hetero organization. But we're now talking about a self-organization. And then on the x-axis, we have the value circulation, from reinventing value to delivering value to sharing value. In a traditional business, as I show you the Michael Porter value chain model, I create value and then I sell the product, and that value actually only transmits to the sellers and resellers, not to end users. But our model ensures value goes into the hands of users, and then we have a value sharing, and then we think about the next point of value creation. So it's an infinite value cycle. This is not numerical growth, but exponential growth. The EMC contract has disrupted hierarchy, redefined organizational structure, and then addressed the issue of the split up of large business empires. We have a lot of business organizations that were doing well, but when they come to a certain size, they will have to be disintegrated. It's like a tree. When you grow too big, you will have to branch out. But our organization enables self-splitting. For example, smart home, you'll be able to spin out different smaller units of smart home scenarios. So we address the issue of a split up because of size. And last year, with the EMFD, we actually issued the world's first Rendanheyi certificate.
Next, I would like to talk on the fourth financial statement, the win-win value-added statement. Traditional enterprises have 3 financial statements, but there are problems, which is the reducing marginal profit. The marginal profit keeps decreasing with the increase of the productivity. the traditional factors for loss making is the inventory and the receivable. But you don't know which employee contributes to what extent the loss making, because there is no clear accountability relationship between performance of each employee and the loss making. And here we can see 2 years ago, during Spring Festival, the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, and 4 employees from higher group read a piece of news on internet saying that hospitals didn't have enough facial masks and protective suits. And the 4 employees established a micro enterprise inside Hire. And they didn't work in silos. They connected with the upper stream and the lower stream with the whole production sector of protective suits and facial masks. And their business got very big in a short time. And at the end of the day, they could be able to export facial masks to other countries. And we also regard this as a butterfly effect. Mr. Jeffrey Thompson, the CEO of Institute of Management Accountant, said both public enterprises and tech startups should have the fourth financial statement as it can explain the value of the company or the revenue from the ecosystem. And the next key pillar of Rendanheyi is the ecosystem brand. And we propose an idea of infinite value expansion. A traditional brand increase its premium by building up the image of the company or the product. In a traditional enterprise or traditional brand, employees only work for the company. They don't own their brand. For example, we also produce freezers, refrigerators, or home appliances in kitchen. But we regard our products as a batch of products to fit in some specific scenario or scene. For example, when we sell smart kitchen solutions to our users, some parts of the home appliances are provided by Hire, others are provided by our partners or other brands not related to Hire. And at the end of the day, we can provide a whole batch of solution to our users. And we can also expand the concept of scenarios to ecosystem. Ecosystem means maybe not only hardware, but also software or your specific customizable demand. For example, you want to enjoy some famous dish which can only enjoy in restaurant because they must be cooked on site by a professional chef. If you want to have such an experience, we can work with the chefs and the farms, and we can make the duck or the fish ready to cook using some technologies. And just using our professional oven with one click, one button, you can get the duck roasted in a very professional way. And for 3 consecutive years, we were named as Brand Z as the only ecosystem brand of the world. The 4th key pillar of Rendanheyi is entrepreneurship culture. And this is very important. I think self-organization is the key of every factor. Traditional enterprises don't have evolution. They don't have infinite interaction. And the traditional enterprises don't focus on the continuous improvement of user experience. So by embedding entrepreneurship culture to users, they will become autonomous and they will create their venture and business themselves. And there are lots of successful cases in Haier. And some entrepreneurs inside Haier figured out that the freezers they provided for hospitals to store blood products were not interconnected. So there were some waste of blood and some waste of efficiency. And then they started to improve the whole system. And finally, they expanded their business and they form a blood internet. And their business covers not only the hospitals, but also the vaccination sites and some clinics, etc. And they connect every link of the whole chain. So it's a change not only about from 0 to 1, but from 1 to n and from n to infinity. So you can start with a very good idea and you can become a micro enterprise. And then this enterprise of blood internet became a public company, and the PE ratio is over 100 and is much welcome in Chinese capital market because it is unique of its kind. And on our platform, we have 4,000 startups. And the difference between Haier Group's incubation platform and the other platform is the Death Valley. Our success rate is above 50%, but the industry average is only 10%. That means only 10% of the startups can make to next step of making revenue breaking the even. And Professor Dana Zohar said the quantum worldview emphasizes dynamic relationship as the basis for all existence. That means every enterprise, if it wants existence, it must regard the world in a dynamic way. Next part, I would like to say that Rendanheyi is not only for Haier, but for the whole world. It is global and it is universal. Professor Leonard Horowitz said, the father of mechanism design theory, said that the universality of the mechanism, the ideal mechanism, participation constraint, and incentive compatible constraint. You cannot force any member to be part of your system. Secondly, you must show and make the participants of the system see and enjoy the value they create. However, these were impossible in a traditional enterprise because employees only own their post salary. They cannot share their excess profits. I just explained the case study of Peking duck, and we invite professional chefs to our ecosystem, and we can count how many ducks we sell every day. And in this way, the chef can make profits by sharing his recipe. Not only that, he can have a very high degree of sense of satisfaction because more ducks are consumed in China, and he can directly see the race and the comments of the consumers on his technique. And some experts said Rendanheyi nowadays doesn't only belong to Haier. It's not executive solution for Haier. It should be universal for the whole world because the mechanism works everywhere, because it's about the very nature of human. We always focus on maximizing the value of human being. Secondly, every individual aspires to fulfill his own value and be treated with dignity. Only by making people autonomous can they enjoy dignity or treated with dignity. GEA was acquired several years ago by Haier 5 years ago, and the revenue of GEA doubled, and the profit increased by 300%.
5-6 years ago, we acquired GA, and you can see the big difference was made. And Mr. Kevin Nolan, the CEO of GA, acknowledges a lot Rendanheyi, and he also effectively combined Rendanheyi and the local culture of United States. And nowadays, many enterprises are interested in using Rendanheyi. So is some non-governmental organizations, for example, UNDP, and some financial institutions, some banks in Italy, and some educational institutions in Silicon Valley. And now some publishing houses and some news media outlets are also trying to use Rendanheyi because their aims are in line with us to maximize every people's value. And Edmund Phelps said ordinary people are also capable of creating original ideas, and the experience of acting on his own idea gives people a sense of autonomy. So entrepreneurship doesn't only belong to entrepreneurs or in a traditional way. So entrepreneurship is about to give entrepreneurship to every individual of your organization. So I want to finish my presentation with a quote from James Carsey: a finite game is played for the purpose of winning, and an infinite game is played for the purpose of continuing the play. Because an infinite game cannot be brought to an end, it cannot be repeated. Some enterprises want to be the #1 in his own vertical, so it is playing a finite game. But if you want to play infinite game, you just keep meeting the needs of your users or consumers, because the needs of users keep changing and they won't repeat. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhang. This was a really, really interesting presentation and impressive achievement on all the work you have accomplished. Now we will have a few minutes before Mr. Zhang has to leave to ask him questions on the back of the presentation. I got a few in the Q&A already, but I give you the opportunity now to think and share your questions in the Q&A, and I will try to ask Mr. Zhang as many as possible during this short time. So, Mr. Zhang, first question is from Erik Schön. I will actually read out the question word by word. Dear Chairman Emeritus Zhang, thank you for an inspiring presentation. China has a long traditional leadership and strategy going back to more than 5,000 years. And you mentioned Lao Tzu as a source of inspiration for Rendanheyi. What is the most important learning takeaway for you and higher from Lao Tzu, Tao, Te Ching, and the world's most read book after the Bible? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. As you mentioned, traditional Chinese philosophy is more systemic. That means we regard everything as a system, and every component in the system is interconnected in a dynamic way. And the Western civilization starts from molecules. For example, you can separate one item into very small molecules. This is also like the difference between Chinese traditional medicine and modern medicine.
I think what's the most thought-provoking to us is the quantum theory, the uncertainty associated with quantum, and also the systematic idea behind that have a lot of parallels in Chinese philosophy. So between Chinese and Western philosophies, we now see more interconnects. The idea of system theory and quantum physics, quantum management in the West have a lot of similarities. So when we were working on improving Rendanheyi, definitely we started with the traditional Chinese philosophy and culture as the starting point, but we also adopted a lot of principles in quantum management and quantum physics. For example, the binary structure, all the particles, their position and their speed cannot be known at the same time. Similarly, you won't be able to tell from an employee's bio or CV what potential he has. So there's uncertainty, and this is why in a time of VUCA, we will have to use both wisdoms.
Thank you for your answer, Mr. Zhang. I have another question. I have a few minutes left here. This question is from Claes Melby. His question is about how you see the public sector could support a country, in this case Sweden maybe then, how to develop a business ecosystem, if they could, and how.
麻烦问一下，它这个公共部门具体指的是像？周老师，您用一下英文频道跟他翻译。它指的是像商学院。
What do you mean by the public sector? Is it the business? Is it the government? Could you be more specific about public sector?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. I hope that I'm right now, Klaus, who put this question, but it's on the back of the government and how they can actually help out the country and to build this kind of system to support the development.
My personal opinion is that, as I said in my presentation, if it's the visible hand or the invisible hand, then the government definitely will have a role to play, but the responsibility rests largely on the organization. First, you have to change from a hetero organization to a self-organization. The government's role is actually to take a backseat, not to intervene too much, so that the organization will have the freedom, the room to thrive. What the government can support is to make sure all the ecosystems out there can come together organically. For example, take Hire Smart Home. We have to connect different sectors, and those sectors and industries can well receive government support. For example, working with the furniture industry or the garment industry. Those industries are quite distant to appliances, but I think the government can help facilitate the connections across those different industries. But as I said, what matters is the organization itself will have to transform to become an ecosystem that's engaging and interactive with users. Otherwise, whatever help is provided by the government, by the public sector, it won't work.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. I think that was a really good answer to that question. I'm very careful about your time, and I know that you had to leave at 9:50, which is the time right now. So before we continue the webinar, thank you again, Mr. Zhang, for your participation. It was really great to have you. And once again, it's a very, very, very interesting story and all the achievements that you have accomplished during this. Thank you. So with that, the next part of the agenda is to look at a few case studies around how actually the Rendanheyi model can be applied around the world. Mr. Shang himself mentioned Kevin Nolan from GEA. The idea was that GEA would be part of the webinar. In the last seconds, they had to actually cancel their participations, but instead they actually delivered a video from Mr. Kevin Nolan where he presents the way they work with the Rendanheyi model. So instead of having him live here today, Kevin will be on a video here, just 5 minutes to present his work.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here again to talk about our transformation at GEA, driven by Rendanheyi. As we reflected on this presentation, we had the deep realization that change is typically triggered by external events. You can have what triggered ours, a sale and acquisition, a pandemic, natural disasters, new competitors coming into your market. But we're finding that we continue to transform, and it's not because of external events. It's because of Rendanheyi and how that forces a constant effort to change. And we see that. Rendanheyi, what is it? It is truly a driving force of change. It's a force that doesn't allow you to stay still. Most businesses, once they get a formula they think works, they rest. But this doesn't allow that to occur. So this is really a journey. It's a journey about being zero distance. It's a journey about being connected to your customer like no one else can be. At GEA, we started with what we call our ME phase. That was 2016 to 2020. Very successful for us. It got us to places we never thought we could be. But now we've started a new journey. We've laid down a new leading goal, and we're calling this our ecosystem phase of how we transform from a product company to a scenario-based ecosystem company. But where are we really going? The ultimate goal that we need to get to is when does the user and the firm become one, indistinguishable. That's zero distance, and that's where Rendanheyi is leading us. So if you look at our microenterprise phase, it was B&B recognized as the leading appliance company in the US. That was our leading goal. What did we do? Create a microenterprise. We confirmed that the owner's our boss, not the CEO in the company, not a bureaucratic organization. We developed a house of brands to get closer to what our customers wanted. We created factories driven by Cosmoplat, and it had results like we have never seen. Breaking down that bureaucracy unleashed the power of the entrepreneurs in our organization. Those entrepreneurs did amazing things, and they were able to move at the speed of the market. Through whatever came at us, even pandemics, we outperformed.
Under GE, we were thought of as a kitchen company, not a laundry company. After the acquisition by Haier and the implementation of Rendanheyi, Kevin Nolan gave us a goal. How do you become leaders in the marketplace? With that goal, we were able to empower our people to look at the marketplace, to look at users and how we deliver value to those users, use their ingenuity to deliver so they unleash their creativity and get rewarded for that creativity. What have we been able to do? We were able to double our revenue since 2017. We have grown our share by 50%. We have become the #1 top-load brand in the U.S. marketplace and delivered an award-winning new front-load product out there. All of this shows what is possible under the Rendanheyi model. But on top of that, it's a real ecosystem. We have brought in partners like P&G and Microban because our consumers want experiences. We know that we have to continue to grow. But to do that, we have to continue to expand our thinking. We've achieved more than we've ever thought we would be able to in the marketplace. We will become leaders. We will become #1 by using the Rendanheyi model as we look forward.
We had 4 years of double-digit growth. We're the fastest growing company year after year in the US. We've been branded the smart home company for 4 consecutive years, leading all competitors in that space. And we've now been certified as one of the best places to work in the US. And why is that? Again, Rendanheyi drove us to this. So now as we move into the ecosystem phase, we've declared this year a new leading goal, to be the #1 ecosystem appliance company in the US. To do this, we're going to have to develop partnerships. We're going to have to co-create, start new businesses. But this is all about getting closer to our customer, becoming a zero-distance company. We're evolving from a product company, which we've been for 100 years, to an ecosystem experience company that develops scenarios that the users are looking for. We need to transition from a hardware-centric company to be software-centric so we can adapt, we can evolve to whatever the users are looking for. And then think of things as now not a one-way value exchange, but this whole thing is at a bi-directional value exchange with our users, with the companies, with our partners. Now, we've already started to experiment and to feel how are we going to do this. And we've done it all over the company in many different ways, whether it's established MEs creating their new ecosystems, new MEs, we're co-creating like we've never done. We're evolving our total business model of how we serve our customers. We're collaborating with certain communities to meet their needs like no other company has ever met them. And we're working on experiences. And we're excited to announce in September, we're having a groundbreaking on what we're calling our Stanford Quantum Experience Center. This Quantum Center is right outside New York City, and it's going to be a look into what the future might be and how can we really be that kind of zero distance company we're striving for through Rendanheyi. So the big question is, where will we go next? What's the next leading goal? And again, we really think that's how does the user and the firm become one, indistinguishable? We've already got some early experiments with that. So right here in First Build, we've got an experiment they're running that's getting towards this distributed organization that really is the user and the firm becoming one. This is a mushroom grower that we're just part of. We have a community that's coming together of users, of companies, all working together to create something that's never been done before. So this has been the most exciting 4 years of this company. We're going to places where other companies haven't ever gone. We can't be compared to our competitors anymore because Rendanheyi pushes you forward. It forces you to transform. And the transformation has to be constant because the world is transforming. And we're going to be there with it, and we're going to be leading it. And thank you again for the opportunity to tell our story, and look forward to seeing everyone in person soon.
So that was a short presentation from Kevin at GEA. And before we go into another round of questions, I would like to introduce João Domingos from Fujitsu that will share his work within his organization, who also work with the Rendanheyi philosophy. So, wow, please.
Hi, Peter. Hi, everyone. I hope you can see my screen. I just put them on presentation mode. So if everything is okay, I will also start. First of all, thank you for the invitation. Very difficult to follow Chairman Zhang Rumin and this amazing video from GE. But I want to talk to you about the experience of Fujitsu with Rendanheyi and with the micro enterprises for a few minutes also. And just quickly on Fujitsu. So we are one of the largest IT services providers based out of Tokyo. We have more than 130,000 employees across the globe. And we're a company a bit like Hire, very proud of our long-term history supporting customers. I am myself responsible for a division inside of Fujitsu. I'm responsible for 6 countries in Western Europe. Unfortunately, nothing to do with Sweden, or at least unfortunately for me. But it's still 6 amazing European countries. We have more than 1 billion euros of business and serve more than 1,000 customers with close to 3,500 employees based out of these 6 countries. And I want to link to Chairman Rumin's pitch and start with our original problem. And everything starts with the why. So if there's anyone listening today and is thinking about experimenting with Rendanheyi, my first advice is that you reflect on what is your business problem, what are you trying to solve? And in our case is that in the IT services industry, a lot of the traditional businesses that we used to do are declining or shrinking. And there is all sorts of new businesses in technology that are booming. So our traditional customers, our traditional contracts, our employees, ourselves, we are sort of, or we were stuck in a position where we needed to change and capture a market opportunity that was moving quite fast with very high percentages of growth. And one of the ways I had to illustrate this issue to my colleagues and my team is to look at the speed and the pace that we have compared with startups, with unicorns, with different industries, because big companies and big corporations tend to some extent to be like dinosaurs. And one of the symptoms I saw of this in in my own organization is that, for example, it took me 4 months following traditional processes, traditional approval system, project management tools to a hiring process. So it was an extremely long journey if you compare it to a startup that, for example, could go from nothing to be worth $1 billion in just 4 months. So we had to change something to address the market opportunity, and the ways we were working before were, from my perspective, not suited anymore. So we took a lot of inspiration, and I was in Vienna in 2019 listening to a very similar presentation at the time from Chairman Rumin, and the concept of zero distance to customers and the concepts of empowered employees were the two things that I took as most interesting from the Rendanheyi model to Fujitsu, and that's what we tried to implement also in our organization. So what we did is we implemented micro enterprises. So if you still recall the video from Kevin on GEA, we're at what he called this step 1, so 2016 to 2020, where he deployed micro enterprises inside GE, and that's what we've done in Fujitsu in 2020 when we started this journey just at the start of the pandemic, by the way. So for us, this was about creating right-sized teams, so small teams with full dedication, board level relevant, that lead their own destiny, so they're empowered owners of their own business, can take their own decisions, and have autonomy in the most critical aspects of business. So this was our interpretation of the Rendanheyi principles and what we thought would fit our organization. And we have seen a lot of success coming out of this. Initially, at the beginning, we launched 14 micro enterprises, and we put 160 people working in these new areas of business. This has now grown to more than 20 micro enterprises, and we have seen, from our perspective, also very good results, as I think it was just mentioned also by Kevin. So we have set goals in 3 different aspects. One is customer satisfaction and net promoter score. And after 1 year, we saw a tremendous improvement in net promoter score, and we reduced significantly, in fact, to no one, the number of detractors. For those of you who are used to working with NPS scores, we moved employee engagement scores 10 points. I think it was, don't get me on the numbers, but around 64 to 74, and 74 is a benchmark for high-performing IT services companies. So that was, for me, one of the most important achievements. And we also have seen a lot of the micro enterprises grow double digits and triple digits inside the year and a half we have with this experience. So I think a very good and satisfying position for us to be in. In my different webinars and presentations that I had with some of the colleagues that are here, I always say this. This is the results of Fujitsu to their business problems. We're still learning from this. We're still learning from all of this journey. We're still, let's say, junior practitioners, if I can put it in these terms. So very, very hard to compare with the journey of hire. But there's definitely something to trying new organizational models and new ways to set up your company that I would encourage everyone to start trying. I am myself not the CEO, so another word I would say is I'm not the CEO of the company, and I could try this. So find a way inside of your organizations to try this, even if you're not the CEO of your company. I think you can always try to apply this to your organizations and to your problems, and so far a good success for us. I would just finish with a few words of things to watch out for, which I think is always good when you're starting. So not all micro enterprises are equally successful or will be equally successful, because part of letting go of in terms of the process and the decision making is to accept people will fail. So there's a part of learning from failures to this model that I think is quite important, that you take time to look into. It will depend obviously on the people mostly, who are the people that will be in charge of the micro enterprises, how entrepreneur are them, how much can they embody new ways of working. It's also about go-to-market and execution and the choices that the different micro enterprises will make. But I think as leaders, and I know there's a lot of business leaders on this call, I would really encourage you to let the micro enterprises try paths and ways and execute their strategy in different ways than you. And it's one of the most difficult things is to let go, because that's the only way also for you to get the reward. And obviously inside a big organization, there's always still some structural issues that for us we'll still need to address, because the entire organization has not moved to Rendanheyi in our case, and this is something that we need to continue. So I would emphasize that workforce planning, workforce reskilling is a critical point. Diversity in recruitment is also critical for the success of these models. So I would again finish my presentation, Peter, and hand over to you. Just saying, try it out, experiment. The more companies that experiment, the more we'll learn from each other. And I think this is really a great methodology that I would again encourage everyone to try out. Peter.
Yes, thank you.
Happy to take a few questions.
Right. I got the question that I think is suited for you, Joao. It's from Thomas Holst. Most executive managers grew their career on like supporting another type of management. What do you see is the biggest change executive managers have to go through on a like personal level to be successful with Rendanheyi?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it briefly in the presentation. It's about the issues of control. So as managers, we're very used to micromanage. In my industry, and everyone that is in the services industry, one of the biggest topics is to avoid risk, to manage risk. You're usually making more money the more risk you pass to customers or to partners or to others, and the less risk your company has. I think you need to embody and accept that you will need to take risks. As a manager, with your teams, with your people, you need to accept that you have hired experts in multiple areas because they are experts, because they are the best people to decide, and not have the temptation of telling them what to do. If you hire the person who's an expert on a certain field or area, you shouldn't be telling them what to do. You just should let them go and take decisions and really empower them. And I think that's a very big change from the usual pyramids and matrix organizations we live in.
Right, thank you. If there is anyone else that have a question to Joao before we continue, please put that in the Q&A. If not, we can also catch up with questions after the webinar, of course. But to continue the webinar right now, the next speaker is Martin Molle, from Vice President of EFMD. And the headline for this part is, can we measure Rendanheyi in an organization? And I do know that you know a lot more about that, Martin. So please share your knowledge around that.
So let me first introduce EFMD. We are a non-profit membership organization with about 1,000 members in over 90 countries. Our mission is to promote excellence in management, education, and management development. And we run, among others, a number of accreditation and certification schemes. And the last addition to that portfolio is the RDHY, Rendanheyi certification scheme. And with that, we offer a diagnostic tool for organizations to understand where they stand in their organizational transformation and where they might want to go next. And thereby we translate the Rendanheyi philosophy into a tool and make it accessible for any organization outside hire. I would like to just show a couple of slides. Let me share my screen. Here, Chairman Zhang has already alluded to the scorecard, which is a two-dimensional representation of Rendanheyi with a horizontal dimension, which we call value expansion, which represents the client user-facing business practices, and a vertical dimension, which represent the non-client-facing business practices around how you organize yourself and work. And by decentralizing, by taking out middle management and allowing the decentral autonomous units to collaborate autonomously by themselves and evolving the organization by itself. So there are several steps along this evolution. And on the value expansion dimension, to move from a logic of a product and service, which is branded, towards a ecosystem, which is branded. So you open the solution space, you broaden the possibility and opportunity space for value creation, and therefore open the opportunity for exponential growth. The certification itself starts with an application. You are then invited to self-assess where you stand along 8 standards and 24 criteria that we offer as a reference model of excellence. Then there are 2 external experts interviewing and reviewing where you stand and provide feedback in terms of strengths and areas you would like to focus on next. There might be optional support if you want it by one of the many Rendanheyi research centers, of which Anika Steiber here on the webinar, for example, runs the one in Silicon Valley. You are positioned in these 2-dimensional model into one of these 4 categories. If you start your transformation journey from a traditional hierarchical organizational approach, you might still be in the explorer quadrant, where you start to explore decentralization, self-organization, and ecosystem thinking. But if you move further north and really move on, as Joao Domingos has just shared with us his approach in Fujitsu, then you are challenging the traditional approach to managing. This is therefore the state of being a challenger. If you move more on the value expansion dimension, let's take the Ubers and Airbnbs of this world. They move into an ecosystem platform thinking, but they still run a traditional organizational model. Then you are an innovator. If you progress on both axes, as Hire has done, then we would see you as a leader in your field. And the last is, if of interest to you, this is where you could get more information and apply for that certification on the efmdglobal.org website. So that's all that I wanted to share.
Okay, thank you, Martin, for sharing that. And after the seminar, we will, for all participants, send out information to get deeper into the Rendanheyi model and learn more. The last area in this webinar is to look into how Rendanheyi can be used and create value in Swedish companies. And I would like to get back to Hire and to actually ask Lina and Elizabeth, who is representing Hire in this webinar as well, how they see that the Rendanheyi model can be used in Swedish ecosystem when it comes to businesses. So please share your thinking around that area. Just before you start, just would like to let you know if there's anyone in the participants that have a question around this or thought about how this can be applied in the Swedish ecosystem, please share that in the question and answers, and we can take that up as a discussion with the panelists as well. Thank you.
这是什么问题？
So what was the question? Could you repeat that, Peter?
Yes. So how Rendanheyi can be used and create value in the Swedish companies? What's your perspectives on that?
As a matter of fact, when we are promoting rendanheyi, we believe this is a universal model. It can be adopted everywhere in the world, but it's not a principle. It's not a walkthrough, and it does not take a stepwise approach. You need an application framework, and we call it the salad culture. The Rendanheyi model is compared to the salad dressing, but you have to look at the ingredients. For example, the business culture in Sweden, as well as how receptive people are towards the model. If you have fruits, of course, there are different fruits out there, then we can use the fruit dressing. That is what remains universal. This is the underlying principle that we use when it comes to universal adoption of Rendanheyi. We do not have a defined framework or walkthrough playbook per se. So it depends on receptiveness on the local ground. And then we usually start with a pilot. For example, Fujitsu, like Raul said, this is first in the form of a pilot. When we have that pilot success, it will be replicated to other business organizations or other departments and business lines of the organization. So that's the sequence, the approach.
Thank you. So let me continue to present a participant in this webinar that also is a partner for making this happen. Her name is Dr. Anika Steiber. She has studied management models for the digital age for almost 2 decades, and she also founded the Rendanheyi Research Center in Silicon Valley. And she's also very soon will be publishing her 8th management book with a leading title, Leading in the Digital Age. And it's focusing partly on the transformation of GE appliances and their case connected to Rendanheyi and the model. And Anika, once again, thank you for being part of arranging this webinar. And I would like to hear your view on this question connecting to how the Rendanheyi model can be applied in Sweden and in Swedish companies.
Absolutely, I would love to. And I will just share one page, one slide with you. Firstly, I think when you approach Rendanheyi, you think it sounds very different and maybe hard to understand. But if you start to analyze what it really is and what is based on, what main principle is based on, it's 6 core principles that the whole philosophy is based on. One is that the importance of ecosystem. So as you heard from both GA and also maybe Fujitsu is coming next step now, they go towards the ecosystem phase. They believe in ecosystem and building ecosystem brand is the strategy for the future. The next principle is networked organization, which is very much the micro enterprises. So you line your organization towards the market, so everyone can be more able to focus on the user and the user's need and create value in that way. And then employees as entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs is the third principle. We heard about the 0 distance to users to try to get rid of any kind of obstacles or barriers between the value creators and the users, the value receivers. And with digital technology, that is definitely more true than ever. And then the 5th one is pay by user compensation. that is what we heard today as well, that you are compensated based on what you actually create value. So if you don't create a lot of value as an employee, you might not get a very high compensation either. So the whole fixed salary system is questioned. And then the last one is a non-linear management. That is management. You can compare it to management as a servant, or management more as a supporting function, or even not needed in many cases at all, because you decentralize decision power, the three rights that Chairman Chang mentioned. So if you look at those principles, those actually fit pretty well with the Swedish culture. We have always been networked pretty extensively in different sectors and industries, specifically in specific industries. We also have been pretty good at decentralizing and creating, this kind of more smaller units, and to let employees to actually take decisions. Value employees as experts and let them be part of value creation. I think we're pretty good at focusing on user value. Regarding compensation, some consultancy companies have experimented with a very similar approach as Rendanheyi. That is that you use more or less a sales commission based off your salary, and then you have a smaller fixed part of your salary. And then, with decentralization, less management. So I think it's not too far-fetched to say that this might actually fit the Swedish culture pretty well. We also have role models already existing, but I would say that we lack, and I say Sweden lack this kind of common set of principles that Rendanheyi actually provide. And I think this set of principles can navigate the Swedish firms and maybe push the evolution of Swedish firms even further, because it's still on experimentation basis and the role models are scattered. And there is not, this is the way of doing it. This is not like there's no one recipe. So I think Rendanheyi maybe could become that recipe.
We got a question, Anika, from Thomas Holst on the back of this. What do you see would be the biggest challenges connecting to this, turn in to work with the model of Rendanheyi in Sweden?
So I think it would be the same challenges as for other Western countries. And as you know, I've been working very closely with GE Appliances, and I'm coming out with a book now explaining their whole transformation. And I think it's the same all over. I think the hardest two things are, one is to go from this kind of, it's one thing to decentralize within the company and to provide decision power and involve, your employees in value creation, but it's a whole other game to create ecosystem. So it really makes sense what GEA did, start with the micro enterprises phase, with aligning, decentralizing, aligning organization to user and market, the market value. And then as a next phase, go towards ecosystem. It sort of makes sense because it's tougher, it's harder, because it's more in conflict with the old paradigm, right? It's a whole new paradigm. The other thing that usually is really hard is the compensation logic. And this is not only based on traditional culture, but it's also based on regulations. So many companies say that we cannot do that because it's not according to regulation, it's not according to what we do here. I think it might not be totally true, because I know companies that have been doing this similar to what GEA decided to do. That is, they actually work with a component of their compensation which reflect value creation. In the GEA case, it's a bonus system. It's a bonus part. So everyone is part of this bonus, everyone, every employee. And based on their value creation, the bonus will get bigger. In the example I mentioned for the Swedish companies, for example, consultancy companies, they have been dealing with that in part of a sales commission. So there already are examples, but that is usually the two components that companies have most problem with, because it's very much different from the old way of thinking.
Thank you, Anika. I had a question from Leonard Almstedt, and this question maybe is something for Elizabeth and Lina to answer, or Anika. It's an open question. The examples that we have looked into today is quite big companies and maybe a bit traditional. But if you look at the smaller companies and startups, could they be also adapting the idea of the Rendanheyi model, and could they in that way also be a way to make this model more applied in Sweden?
Let me take the question first, because if we look at the scope of responsibilities of HMI, we have Rendanheyi Institute in Southeast Asia, and William Malek, the director, has actually helped make a local Thai company, which is a small IT company, to transform. And the CEO of Make is Dutch. This is a small startup based out of Thailand, which is doing quite well. So they came across Rendanheyi, and they took the courses from HMI, and he also took a mentorship from Malek, and his organization is now in the ME phase and now moving towards the EMC phase. Implementing Rendanheyi takes time and experiment. And I think we can keep our eyes on the ball how that will materialize in Make.
Okay, thank you. There is a lot more to talk about when it comes to this Rendanheyi model for sure. I would like to keep the time for the webinar. It's only 2 minutes left now. And we got a few questions in the chat and the Q&A that I hadn't had a time to actually share with all of you. We will try to look at these questions and summarize them after the webinar. We will also publish, as I told you in the beginning, the webinar as it is at the EVA homepage after a few days. And with saying that, I would like to say thank you to everyone. And if there's anything else that you are missing out on when it comes to information, you can go to the EVA homepage and get in contact with me, Peter Mandel again, and I will try to facilitate the contacts to the panelists, if possible, to dig deeper into the model and learn more on how you can apply the model and investigate in it. So with that, thank you for this morning, and I hope for all of you to have a really nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.